Hi everyone, and thanks for being with me. I can hear Avery coughing around in the background. He might mute that while he's coughing, but it's been some time since we've been able to get together on a live feed. I did a live feed last week, which was extremely successful, and we'd like to think that you could join us for this feed. Anybody that's got any questions, anything that you would like us to discuss, this is an opportunity for you to do so by connecting with the great, the wonderful Avery Hilditch. We'll just introduce Avery back in just a moment. But just want to let you know that we're heading for 5,000 subscribers on my channel. So it's really important, therefore, that you subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for further notifications. Let me know what you think of... I do love reading through the comments that you make on my YouTube channel. Some of them are interesting, some of them are fascinating, some of them are just bloody abusive, to be quite honest. But nevertheless, make a comment. I'll be more than delighted to hear from you. We've got 4 people online at the moment, so let me know what you think. And I and Avery will talk about issues. So we've got a number of issues that we want to discuss, primarily, and the primary one, I guess, is, well, first I'll introduce Avery, bring Avery on. Hi, buddy. How's you going?
I'd like to say I'm on top of the world, but you heard me coughing at the beginning there. So a quick warning, I've had this chest I'm not going to be passing it on to anybody that's watching, obviously, but there's always a possibility I might suddenly fall down in a coughing fit.
Well, providing you don't die online, that's the important thing, mate. Is that you keep it together long enough to provide some wisdom. Yeah, that's it. to provide some wisdom to us all about things that matter to you.
I will do my best.
So we've got a few things to talk about, and I guess one of the things that we really need to have focus on is what's happening in the United States at this moment. Now, I do need to qualify that, Avery, by saying that many of my subscribers don't focus so much on United States issues. I've discovered they're more interested in Australian issues, which is fine, and they're particularly a bank of people that I do have, I think, are primarily interested in Sky News, your favourite network, and what happens on Sky. So that's just in passing. So, but at the moment, give us your view on what's happening in the United States, and then we'll have a conversation about it.
Well, Trump has been doing his usual thing, lying. About what's going on in LA. All the problems that they've got, all the protests have been peaceful. If you were to watch Fox or Sky News and see their reporting on it, the reporting is a lie, because they're showing things like they showed a video of a car burning. That video was taken in 2020, and it wasn't in Los Angeles, but they're using it to foment trouble. And the way that Fox and Sky and that are portraying it, you'd think that the entire city of Los Angeles was on fire.
And I've been watching some live feeds also that are available on YouTube, and there is very little. There's very little you see on the live feeds that is really about violence. What you see, frankly, is a whole host of policemen and National Guardsmen standing around picking their noses, simply because they haven't got anything to do. They must be the most bored group of people you could ever imagine, just standing there in what I think is quite warm conditions in LA at the moment, wondering why in the hell they are there in the first place. But these live feeds that you see, there's no violence. And you're right. Why is it, do you think, that the media would choose to show just those snippets of not only stuff that happened, 5 years ago, but also they're having a go, they're trying to, I don't know what the word's encourage, they're trying to perpetuate the theme that these are firstly riots, they're not just protests and they're marches, that they're violent.
Well, I think part of the reason is viewership. You look at any newspaper, any TV report, When do you ever hear about firemen rescuing a kitten from a tree? You never do. You hear about murders, school shootings in the United States, a riot somewhere, anything with violence that attracts attention. But something, a nice story of, as I said, firemen rescuing a kitten from a tree, that's not newsworthy, so they don't put it up. The people like Fox, in particular, they've got a narrative that they want to um, uh, to broadcast, to perpetuate that the left side of politics is violent, dangerous, and things like that. When in fact, if you look at it, the those protests peaceful. There's
And
if
there's
you look at
also
LA, so
yeah,
hang on. If you look at LA County,
yeah,
11 million people live in there. If you look to where these protests are, that's 1 square mile of Los Angeles City, which has got a population of 4 million. Right? That's 4 million within that 11 million that's in LA County. The total number of protesters that have turned up has been 4,000 approximately. The total number of people that's been arrested is 400.
mm,
Well, if you do the math, that means that 99.99% of the people of LA County aren't involved in this. And yet, the way the media is portraying it is that it's 99.9% that is involved,
yeah, yeah.
right? And the reason I wanted to talk about, mention these riots, these protests, is the comparison between there and a protest I went to in the 1970s and what happens with protests here, right? We rarely see anything, um, the violence that's being portrayed as happening in, it's not that we don't, we do, right? In the 1970s, I went to a protest outside the South African embassy in Trafalgar Square. There was nearly 40,000 people there, not one single arrest. Right? There was a few hundred police, 40,000 people, nothing.
Mm.
We just made a lot of noise protesting the apartheid government in South Africa. Right? The Yanks seem to be incapable of doing that sort of thing, or rather, the media now uh, seem to be incapable of reporting that because they're just not interested in reporting the facts. The mainstream media, the CNN, they are. I used to like watching CNN. Not now. Dana Bash and Jake Tapper, they are a disgrace to the profession of journalism. MSNBC is a lot better.
Yeah,
Fox News is Fox News.
well,
You're never
that's
going to get the
you
truth
can't
out of them.
describe. You
Yeah.
can't use
And
words to describe Fox News, can you? Because
well,
they are just, as you say, Fox News. But I think one of the things that we need to focus on is why is Trump doing all of this too? And there's a few theories around. I'd be interested to hear what yours might be. But one of those theories is that this is a trial run to see whether or not he'd be able to generate enough interest in catastrophe and chaos so that come the midterms, he will be able to say, well, this is a crisis, and therefore I have to cancel the midterms. Have you heard that theory at all? What do you think of that one?
I've heard that theory. Um, he's I've also heard it being said that it's a trial run to see if he can get away with putting the National Guard in every state on the streets. In his last regime, in Trump 1.0, he used the National Guard against what he called rioters, which were just protesters.
Mm.
Why does he do it? He's a fascist, right? He loves authoritarian leaders like Putin, uh, Urban, people like that. He loves them. He wants to be
But
one
isn't it?
himself.
But isn't it more than just that too? Isn't it about him wanting the
To stay
power,
out
the
of prison.
adulation,
Yeah,
the acclaims of greatness? Well, so it's a bit like on Saturday he's doing this birthday thing where he's having a military parade for himself. Oh, for Christ's sake! I tell you what, my wife often says to me, "Do you think if you're an American you'd be embarrassed?" And I say to her, well, firstly, thank God I'm not an American, and secondly, yeah, I would be. Like, can you imagine any of this stuff happening in Australia. One of the things I'm doing now in terms of my podcasts, my videos on YouTube, is I'm focusing on, what is the contrast between what's happening in the US now and whether or not that just simply would be tolerated in Australia.
I don't
because
think it would.
because it wouldn't. No, and I've also I posted today for those people that are watching who perhaps haven't noticed. I posted on Australia's response to Trump, which was a survey, international survey done by the Pew Research, which which really indicated that Australians don't give a shit about Trump. In fact, we are so hostile towards Trump that it is a strong indicator that that sort of politics, that sort of rhetoric, would not be tolerated in this country.
It's why Dutton's no longer a member of Parliament.
Well, that's
It's
why
why,
Morrison was dropped too.
yeah, it's why Clive Palmer lost,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because they were adopting, not going full MAGA, but they were heading in that direction,
Mm,
and the
mm.
Aussie people don't want it.
No, no,
Right?
they don't. But
The
what does
Go
it
on.
say about Americans though? And this is one of the issues that I often consider is that you know um, he got elected, Trump got elected, and when you see that they're in favour of his policies around immigration, in fact, majority of Americans support, and Democrats do support the notion that there's too many illegal immigrants, whatever that might mean, and they should be, if they've committed an offence, if they've committed a crime, then they should be. I was going to say terminated, but that's not the right word. They should be expelled from the
Deported.
country,
Yeah.
deported. So most people agree with that, right? So the issue is not about whether or not, and the right wing are becoming excited about this notion that most Americans believe that they should be uh, deporting all of these people. So Americans on the whole think this is a great idea. It's not that. It actually appears now to be the execution of the idea that primarily seems to be the problem.
Well, there was a Quinnipiac poll published. It was either yesterday or just this morning, where he's 11 points down. 11. It's on his immigration policy. I don't mean he's 11 points down from being 60. Now he's at 49.
It's back to 39 or 38, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's his overall um, position. But uh, on uh, on his immigration policy, he's down 11 points, minus 11.
Mm.
Right. On his handling of the deportations, he's down 20%, 20 percentage points. He's now under 50% on both of them, where he was. I mean, he was about 54% on immigration. Now he's down to about 43.
Mm.
And he was about 56% on the handling of it. And he's now down below 40.
Do you think there'll come a time? I don't know whether Trump actually takes all that much note. It's a bit of a mute point, I think. Does Trump really notice the change in the polling? Is he aware of it to the point whereby, and this is my theory, that if he realises that he's losing popularity and he sinks into the mid 30s in particular, which means that is eating away at the base, then will that mean, if that's the case, that he will then become more aggressive, more authoritarian, more dominant, and more radical in the way that he decides to deal with the American people? What do you think?
Well, the first thing, when he sees a poll that is unfavourable to him, it's fake news. It's a fake poll. If it's favourable, it's a genuine poll. It can be the same organisation that does it. So Gallup, or Quinnipiac. I don't know if Gallup's still going, but Quinnipiac do a poll and it's favourable. Great poll.
But
They
what
do
if?
another
But
poll
what if
and
all
it's
the polls though?
unfavourable.
But
They're
what if all
fake.
the polls? What if those polls start to turn against him?
Then he's going to he'll take the same approach. If they're in his favour,
Mm.
they're good polls. If they're not, they're bad polls. And then when they're bad polls, I I can see him doing more of what he's doing right now. Uh, increasing what he's doing right now.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things about what's going on in LA right now is that uh, he's been talking about sending the National Guard into other states. Now
Yeah.
you look at those other states; they're blue, right? They're Democratic governed states. You look at the red states with the same problems, right? And they're red.
Yeah.
Look at the red states, I should say, with the same problems. He's not sending the National Guard in there. He's just leaving the ICE to do their stuff in those states.
Yeah.
Right? He's doing all this deliberately to provoke a reaction, and he's hoping that the reaction will be violent, so
Yeah.
that justifies what he's doing. Typical of a Republican, create a crisis and say, "Here's a solution for
Yeah.
it," to a crisis that they created.
Yeah.
I see we got some comments there.
We have got some comments. I was just looking through them at the moment. We've got quite a few. We've had quite a few people online, actually, about 75 to this point. But I'm just trying
I
to.
agree with what Donna says there. There are still some shockers on MSNBC. There are. They're not
There
all
are.
good. Just they've got a lot of the MSNBC people are far superior to the what I think are um, Republican Trump shills on CNN.
Yeah.
And Fox is Fox, So
Yeah, I
we
think.
don't expect any different.
Yeah, and I think
Trump is
Morning
a
Joe.
dictator. I agree with that.
What do you agree with? Do you think about Morning Joe? Do you believe that?
Morning Joe was. Oh, good, you've put it on the screen. Morning Joe, I used to like that until Joe and Mika went down to Mar-a-Lago to suck up to Trump.
Yeah.
And I've gone off them. They've got people that I like Michael Steele, really good uh, uh, Republican, right?
Yeah.
Lifelong Republican. He was a very senior in the RNC. Great guy. I love to hear him speak. Um, People like Lawrence O'Donnell. James won't agree with this. I like listening to Rachel Maddow.
I love Rachel, but there
Right.
again, that's the way I am. But there's
Yeah.
this one. There's this post here, Avery, which I'll bring back up, which we are one world, and I really do thank Untold Misery for this one. I love it. We are one world, and every country needs more immigration. Australia is still way too white. It's absurd. I just want to make a comment about that. Is that I don't know what makes us too white.
Yeah. Well, maybe Untold Misery could explain what they mean.
Yeah, exactly. Do you mind? If you're still
Add
online?
a
Just
comment,
let us
explain what you
know.
mean.
Let us know why it's still way too white. What is there like? Is there like a
I mean,
color definition that we need to be in order
maybe
not to be
maybe
white?
maybe this person's talking about the number of uh, Anglo Saxons, if you like, in the country.
Yeah,
People my skin color, your skin color.
yeah.
You know,
And
um, but I don't know.
but I'm
They'll
not
have
gonna.
to
I'm not.
explain.
I'm certainly not going to put Untold Misery down because he also says Trump is a dictator.
Yeah,
So I'm not going to disagree with
100%. He's a fascist.
any
He's
of
a.
that. Now I do have.
I used to say he's a wannabe Hitler.
Yeah.
He's not. He's a 21st century Hitler. Not there's no wannabe about it.
I think there's quite an interesting contrast that needs to be made with some of these other dictators is that to some extent they were relatively intelligent. I mean, sadly, they were also psychopaths and narcissists. So they fit with Trump in
Just
that
like
in
Trump.
that area. But do they? And I don't know all that much about them really, apart from what we read in history books. But I do think that there is an issue, particularly around the fact that Trump's an idiot.
Yeah,
And I want to know. I want to know. Look, if you're gonna do something about having a leader who's a dictator, at least choose someone that's smart. You
yeah.
know why? What does it say about America that you can't even choose a smart dictator? You have to choose the biggest clown you could find in order to emulate your version
Well,
of events. It's just crazy
Trump
shit.
Trump won in 2016 because he didn't cause a division that's in the United States right now. He just played on the division that was there.
Yeah.
He amplified it and he exploited it.
Yeah.
And he appealed to sufficient people to win that ridiculous election model that they use, the electoral college.
Yeah.
All right. Even in this election in 2024, he didn't win a a mandate, an
Yeah.
absolute mandate, a huge mandate, as he put it,
Yeah.
bigly. He got four. If you
Bigly.
look at yeah, if you look at the total number of votes he got against the people that voted, the total number of votes cast, he got
Yeah.
49% of 49.8%. That is not a majority. If
Yeah.
you then look at the total possible votes that he could have got if everyone had got off their asses and voted, he got about 27% of the vote.
Yeah.
About what's that? About 73% of people voted against him in some way or another.
Yeah. Spot on.
Yeah.
So we did get a response from Untold Misery. So I just need to
Yeah. Put it on screen.
highlight this very
Maybe
point.
trying to read it over on
Well,
that
I
one.
can bring it up. System's a bit slow at the moment. She does so. I haven't quite got that yet at the moment. But Australia per capita has a radical racial discrepancy of Anglos. I'm not going to dispute that fact because that's probably true. So I certainly understand. What she means there. And I can't bring it up. It seems to have locked on me. Okay, so
It may be the area in which this person lives. I don't know whether it's a male or a female. So
no.
it may be the area in which they live. That's where I live. We've got a fairly large, Para Hills. We've got a fairly large population of Somalis,
Yep.
Indians, Pakistanis, people. A lot of people from the Middle East in this area.
Yeah.
And I've got no problem with that at all.
No, neither have I. I mean, this country was founded. Well, it was founded. Well, it's made up of everybody from anywhere else. If you're non-Indigenous, let's face it. It's just a.
Yeah,
it's
you're
just
either an immigrant or a descendant of immigrants.
You are.
And that
It's just
that
reality.
reminds me, my favourite Queensland senator lost his seat.
Oh, he didn't, did he?
Gerard Rennick is
Oh
now
my
Australian.
God, that is so sad. I can almost feel those tears of distress flowing this way, Avery.
Yeah, I'm absolutely heartbroken. I wrote to him and offered my congratulations on his loss.
I'm sure he was thrilled to hear from you.
Yeah.
So one of the issues that one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was how do you think all this stuff, this chaos in the United States, how does it affect Australia?
Well, everything the vast majority of things that they do in the United States affect us in some way eventually. Because they're the world's richest country, the strongest economy. All of that's going downhill now under the dear fascist leader.
Yeah.
They are the strongest military. They make a decision. It's going to affect us in some way. What's going on? What's going on in the United States right now with this sort of thing that's going on in LA? I'm not so sure that we're going to import that because this last month the election showed that we don't want that sort of shit in this country.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. When we get protests, we do get people that get violent. I'm not denying that. But generally, what I've seen is protests here are protests.
Yeah.
And we don't have a national guard, but we don't have the military getting called out. And yet we've got nothing like posse comitatus in Australia that I'm aware of, which says you can't use the military to do that. We just don't do it.
Yeah.
Same in the UK. There's no. It's a sort of gentleman's agreement that the military keep out of civil affairs. So the military can't.
Well, does this mean that there are very few gentlemen around, Avery? This is what you're
in the United States.
In the United States, there's none.
Yeah,
zero.
None.
I just got a post here from Alex Smith. Just subbed. Love your work.
Good on you.
Thanks, Alex. That's very important. So
Yeah.
thanks for doing just that. And I want to just suggest to anybody else, if you wouldn't mind, just please subscribe to my channel and ring the bell. And Untold Misery, which I just want to say that if you... I'm still, this system's locked up on me, but she did say non-binary. But
Yeah.
if anybody wants to have a conversation with us, please do. You can always let me know if you want to connect with us, and I use Wirecast and Rendezvous, so I could send you a link, and Avery and I could connect up, and we can have conversations with you, which is really basically what I want to do with this channel. So please let me know if that is something that would interest you. Okay, Avery. So we're just talking about Australia, where this does affect us. The other thing too that I wanted to have a conversation with you was about Aukus, because you now know that they're reviewing the situation. That is, the United States
Yep.
is now reviewing the situation in relation to Aukus. And I have a specific view, which may be a little bit different from yours, is that I think we should say stuff Aukus. Why should we give the United States any more money, or the UK for that matter? And whether or not we should just decide that we need to fight for ourselves, we need to defend. Joe Hockey was on Sky News recently, and it's the first time I've ever agreed with Joe, but he was actually saying that it is best for us to find other ways to deal with our defence and not rely on others such as the United States, which was, let's face it, pretty damn impressive.
I'm coming around to the view that we should form a military alliance with China. How about that one?
Oh, I don't. Well, actually, I didn't put that.
No, I'm
I
joking.
don't.
I don't think we should, but
But
don't
I
they're
think we
gonna
could
invade
do
us.
something. But surely we could do something about building those relationships, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Untold Misery says that they must go. Keep up the good work. Information is key, and lazily sending blessings your way. Thanks, Untold Misery. I really appreciate the time that you spent on here. And Julie Miller has said, Untold Misery, we have a full sense of that, given that Anglo people are only 16% of the world's population. Interesting point. And as soon as this thing sticks, and I don't know why it's taking so long. Anyway, the point is that, Avery, we should perhaps consider other alternatives, maybe.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know how much we've spent so far on AUKUS. We initially were going to buy those submarines from France.
Yep.
And when they decided to cancel that and do the AUKUS thing, it cost us, we spent about $10 billion, $15 billion, something like that, on submarines that we never got. Right?
Yep.
We're never going to get that $15 billion back. How much have we spent on AUKUS so far?
Well, we just sent them 8 billion or something, didn't we? So
I'm not sure.
But I just want to bring up this comment here from Alex. Thanks, Alex. We need to be less reliant on America and work more with other countries in all aspects.
Absolutely.
And I think, Alex, this is becoming a trend now, that more people are thinking about this in this sense too, that that we need to be looking for other alternatives. So in actual fact, I think we could say that the United States and Donald Trump have, in a bizarre sort of way, and Pete Hegseth, have done in a bizarre sort of way, done us a favour.
Yeah.
What do you think, Avery? Do you think?
They have, Trump and his drooling sycophant cabinet and that, and the drooling sycophants in the Republican Party in the House and Senate, they have turned the world off the United States.
Yeah.
Canada is looking at military alliances with and economic alliances with the EU.
Yep.
And Canada has bought the over-the-horizon radar from Australia. They're talking about building stronger ties with Australia.
They have.
They're looking at stronger ties with every other country apart from the United States. Europe is doing exactly the same thing. Every country in Europe is doing exactly.
And I think eventually too, that what we'll discover is that more and more countries will be looking for other resources. Now, France, interestingly enough, France and Germany have quite a military background technically. And the problem that we've had in the past, as I understand it, because Avery, I'm an expert in this area, apparently. No, I'm not. But one of the issues has been, the technology, because we bought so much American stuff, the technology required is maintained by the Americans. So every time you upgrade something like a fighter jet or whatever, you're going to need to have that upgrade, the technical upgrade. So it's almost like the United States have held us over a barrel in
Well,
relation to a lot of these issues. But I think once we break from that and once the technology gets developed, in fact, now I'm on a roll. In fact, what I did hear Joe Hocking talking about was that we should become so technically advanced in this country, which we have the capability of doing, that it won't matter anymore about, buying equipment and technology from somebody else.
yeah, he's not wrong. Uh, this thing about all the reliance on stuff from the United States goes straight back to the world's largest economy, largest industrial, the industrial stuff, the technology they developed. In the 1970s, they started introducing what they called interoperability. Before they introduced that, if you, I was in the Air Force, Royal Air Force, our rifles fired 7.62 millimeter bullets.
Yeah.
United States Air Force, United States troops fired a 5.6 millimeter. The Germans fired 9 millimeters.
Yeah.
Right. So if we needed bullets, we couldn't just get bullets from the Germans or the Yanks. We had to go and manufacture them ourselves in the UK. The interoperability meant that everybody's now using 5.6 millimeter, which is the size that the Yanks use. Right.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
The if we a British built aircraft or a European built aircraft before interoperability, if like the RAF they had the Jaguar, right?
Yeah.
And that would take weapons that were built in France, but they couldn't fit weapons that were built in the United States or Germany or Spain, right? Interoperability means that you can get weapons that are designed for that system, right, from any of the countries in NATO. And equally, you could buy stuff from
Yeah.
here
Yeah. Yeah.
and install it, and you don't need to do any. When in Ukraine, when we started supplying them with, when the British and the French started supplying them with the Scout and the Scout missiles, they had to modify the aircraft so they could fit these missiles beneath them. Interoperability means you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
You just buy the missile and install. You
Yeah.
don't need to build a special clamp and launching system or anything like that.
So, Julie,
And so the reason I mention that is that all that interoperability was a good thing
yeah.
until we got a moron elected as president of the United States.
So, Julie, I just want to bring up this from Julie Miller. So she says, feels like we're politically squeezed between America and China. What a dilemma. And I think, Julie, that notion around what a dilemma, I think, is really important to acknowledge, because it will, we've been fighting against this notion, I guess, that China's bad, right? So because we've been fighting so desperately against this singular notion that China is bad, and that's the way it's been for decades, how do we now adjust, Avery, to consider that perhaps China isn't that bad, and that we could vary our version of how to deal with them a little differently? Like it's a little bit like changing tact, isn't it? By seeing your enemy
China
perhaps
bad?
not as your enemy, but as something else.
So what makes China bad?
Well,
How many times have they gone to war?
Well, zero.
Right? How many countries have they invaded? They have invaded countries. They
Well,
invaded Tibet,
they invaded Korea,
right?
didn't they? Was it Korea?
And they invaded Korea in
Yeah.
1950 or 51. They invaded Korea. They invaded Tibet, right?
But
They've
my
done
argument,
nothing else.
has always been that they're not as an aggressive nation historically as the United States is.
Yeah, the United States has been It's what? It's on its 249th birthday right now.
Oh,
240, 250, 249 years ago that the Declaration of Independence was written, right? They spent something like 19 years in all that time when they weren't at war with somebody,
yep.
right? Why do we rely on them? Because they're the world's biggest economy, strongest army, most powerful army, etc. And we had all those people that were on the in Russia that we were scared of, right? And believing that the propaganda that was coming out of places like the United States about how powerful Russia was and how we had to
Well, it was all
prepare
those
for a nuclear war against them.
it was all those communists, Avery.
Yeah,
There were those red bastards were under our beds. They were everywhere. They were infiltrating things like Hollywood. They
yeah.
were conveying. And what is the similarity between all of that than the woke shit that you now get from the right wing about what's happening on the other side of politics? It's almost like we're reinventing the 50s
Yeah.
or worse. And
In Trump's case, the 1930s.
yeah. And we're just, I don't know. It's like we've made these retrograde steps. Like we're moving so far backwards now that we're tripping over ourselves as we become more and more focused on stuff that is completely bloody irrelevant, as far
Yeah,
as I can tell.
yeah, yeah. The you asked about was it somebody said about the dilemma of being stuck between choosing between the United States and China. But to
Yeah.
me, the choice is pretty simple at the moment. I'd, 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 there's two ways I can put it. One way is I'd rather trust China. The other way is I'd trust an angry rattlesnake before I trust the United States at the moment.
Yeah, spot on. So, the choices. So, really, when you think about it, I'd like to know
I've
what
lived
people
in
think
China,
about
by
it.
the way.
Beg pardon?
I say I've lived in China as well.
Yeah, well, you're just so worldly travelled. You're just a
I
worldly
know,
individual. What can I
I
say?
know. Yeah,
Um, so someone
great
else
place.
here,
7 countries, Tony.
yeah, someone else is here. I just need to develop. Oh, I can bring it up. So I'll bring this one up
Yeah.
for you.
Let me just move that out of the way so I can actually read it.
Aussies need to develop. Oh, what happened to it? It's gone. I'll bring it back up again.
Their own policy
Aussies need to
free of
develop.
both Britain.
Oh, it's jumping around now. I'm a bit confused. I better clear it, then I'll start again. Um, is this the one? Is it Julie's? No. Hold on. It's this
Aussies,
one. Aussies need to develop their own. It's having trouble coming up. I don't. It's having a hic. It's
Aussies need
having
to
a
develop
moment.
their own foreign policy free of both Britain and the US. There is no need for a British presence in Australia or the Pacific.
That's the one I
Uh,
wanted.
I wouldn't entirely disagree, but I wouldn't entirely agree either.
Yeah. Now
We,
it's just bouncing. It's bouncing around, so it's hard to get it. But
yeah,
anyway,
I don't
yes.
entirely disagree. The first thing British that we need to get rid of is the monarchy. We don't need
Oh,
it.
wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yeah, we
Um,
don't need it. Do we need to have a British presence in the Pacific? Yeah, why not? What's wrong with it? Right? Do we need to have
who's present? Sorry.
a British presence? Um, whoever it was there, Alex. Sorry, I can't read it. Dano something.
Oh
Aussies
yeah,
need to
Aussies need to
develop.
develop their own foreign
Yeah.
policy free of both Britain and the US. There's no need for a British presence in Australia, I guess, or in
Well,
whatever. In,
should we then not have an Australian presence in the UK? Right? Should we not have an Australian presence in Japan or Chile or South Africa?
well, it's this soft power argument, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like, do we need? Of course we do. If
yeah,
we care about the world generally, or we just want to become super isolationists, like the United States, then
yeah.
we're not truly world citizens, are we? If we stop caring about
Somebody
other
else said
people.
that we're one world in here in this chat.
Yeah.
They're absolutely right. What we don't need is to have militaries all around the world projecting their power that way. What soft power is the way to do things. Like China's doing their bricks and what do they call it? The road and bridge or something like that.
Yeah.
Road and rail initiative. I can't remember what they call it now. That is the one where, Tanzania says we need this water purification system, and they asked the United States, and the USA was US. Well, now under Trump, the USA says, "Well, what are we going to get in return?"
Yeah.
China says, "We'll give you the money. We'll build it for you." That is soft power, which the United States has thrown away. If we say we don't want British, French, Greek, Japanese in our waters or in our area in the Pacific, we're throwing away that uh, soft power.
Yeah. Yeah. The saying it's Gareth Thomas um, says, if I can bring it up, I'll just get rid of that one.
No,
Will Australia? I like this. Will Australia get their money, the money back? It is already paid into Aukus,
yeah,
or
some
is
of
this
it's
all
been.
internal
I,
spending?
yeah, I don't know how much has been spent. I do know because of the work I used to do. I do know that some of it was spent externally.
Yeah.
How much? Uh,
Oops, wrong one.
yeah, how much was spent externally and how much internally?
Yeah.
I mean, some of the stuff is prepping shipbuilding over in Osborne here in South Australia,
Yeah.
for doing this some of the submarine work, doing stuff in Fremantle where they're going to be based.
Yeah. And I agree with this comment here. I'm talking about a military presence. Australia should concentrate on our own neighbourhood, living at peace with our neighbours. How
Oh,
true is that true? Don't you reckon?
that is true, right? That we should focus on living in peace with our neighbours. But as I've said to you before, if our neighbours decided to get hostile and decided that they would, I'm not suggesting they're going to do it, but if they did, there's nothing we can do to defend ourselves.
But the
We
point
don't have the
is,
population to defend ourselves.
and
So
probably what probably
having
never
having
will.
that, and probably,
Well,
or possibly never will.
well, we're not going
But
to have a population of even hundreds of millions, let alone billions, like they do in
well,
India and China.
well
We're
you
never going
can't.
to have that population. So don't we have to be smarter then
Well,
about the
two
technology
things.
and about the way
You
we invest in our people?
you can't say we'll never have that population, right? Because you can't see that far into the future. We won't have it in the next 100 years, maybe not, but who knows in 300 years, right?
Yeah,
You're right. We need to be smart about the way we do things. But one of the smart things is you form military alliances,
yeah,
which means a British presence in Australia. It doesn't have to be permanent. British bases here, American. We don't need to have permanent American or Chinese bases here or
yeah.
Argentinian. It
We
doesn't matter.
have. I do
Just
have to say, Avery, we have a very smart group of people
yeah.
commenting on this
The
feed. We've got
people.
someone who's. This is an issue too that I think is really important. We could do this all day, but we've got to finish off at some point.
Yeah.
But could we develop and rely on drone welfare? Seems
Drones.
to be the way things are going. Like there's so much conversation. Look what Ukraine did to
Yeah.
Russia
Yeah.
by hiding drones in trucks.
Yeah.
Maybe it isn't about necessarily being the biggest. Maybe it's about being the smartest.
Well,
That's got
the problem with drones is that you're taking a person out of it. It's like those the big autonomous aircraft like the Predator, right?
yeah,
There's no human at risk
yeah,
except for the ones on the ground. They're at risk, but
yeah,
there's no pilot in it. So you're ensuring the safety of your personnel, right? But you also take out the ability to make discretionary um, decisions.
yeah,
Do I attack that target?
yeah,
If you've got a pilot in the aircraft, they might say, "No, no, I can see 500 civilians there. I'm not going to drop this bomb."
yeah,
If you've got a drone that hasn't got that sort of decision-making AI built into it, or a human who's a few hundred kilometers away that's driving it,
yeah,
make that decision, then you can get all sorts of uh, bad things happening. I'm not saying that it's not going to go that way, right? Because I'm not one for predicting the future. Um,
No, no kidding, Avery.
like
I
this
thought
is never going to happen, you
I
know.
like the way I. Well, it's like the argument. Will we ever reach 1 billion people? Who knows? Who cares at this particular point? We've only
But
got 25
certainly not
million,
going to take.
but
We're not going to see it.
no, it's not going to happen in our lifetime. That is for sure. But I guess what we need to be wary of or mindful of is that there will be some things that will happen not only in our lifetime but for our kids and our
Yeah,
grandkids' lifetime that we need to take care of right now. And I think that there's such a shift in defence that like even the Labor Party are now deciding. I think like how serious do we need to take this clown in the White House? Like,
we
what?
absolutely do.
Well, I don't know. Well, okay. I'll ask another question, which is a simple question, and that is how serious should we take him in terms of looking after our defence as he becomes more isolationist. We're going to become less and less significant. I think that's a given, isn't it? So even if
Yeah.
that's the case, then we sort of shouldn't take. And how can we believe him? I mean, he changes his
Well,
mind every freaking day. So
he is one of the most important bases the United States has got is based in Australia. It's called Pine Gap. It's all about intelligence gathering.
yeah,
He can throw that away,
yeah,
right? And who loses? The United States loses, and we lose.
yeah,
You know, the Western alliances, the anti-dictatorship type of countries lose
yeah,
because that loss of intelligence gathering, right?
yeah.
Um, how seriously should we take him? We should take him extremely seriously until the day he does the world a favor and dies.
Yep, fair enough. There's this other comment here I want to put in, Avery, which is the Australian government should be developing mutually beneficial diplomatic relations. I don't think that should
Absolutely.
die either, Damon. So
Well,
I think that's all part of the current exercise. The point I want to make is, though, that it shouldn't be about giving in to the United States at every whim. So, United States tell us that we should increase by 1.5% our gross national product in terms of defending Australia, whatever it is. I think we should say no. We're going to stand up for it, which is what Albo's doing at the moment. And I think this is a change in diplomacy, that we
yeah,
should now stand up for us. That
yeah,
what is important is whatever we think is important for us, not what someone else is telling us what they think we should be doing. I think that's an
100%.
important step forward.
Yeah, 100%. I've got a question. I don't know what the name of this person was. I think you might have said it. Danny, was it, or something like that?
Yes. I don't. Daniel. I don't know how you pronounce that. Let's
All
call
right.
him Dano, for argument's sake.
Well, Dano said that we should be developing mutually beneficial diplomatic relations. When have we never tried to do that?
Yeah.
Right? We've always tried. All governments, oh, most governments do. I shouldn't say all.
Mm.
I mean, there have been certain governments that existed in the past, like one certain Adolf Hitler. He didn't do much in the way of trying to develop beneficial relations.
Yeah.
There's a world leader I can think of right now who's doing very little to develop international relations diplomatically.
Yeah.
Right?
And
Donald
it's,
Trump.
like Lakeside said, 100% soft power works better than aggression.
Yeah,
Ain't that the truth? And when you look at what the United States has done with regard to USAID, you then realise, like at the moment, there are tens of thousands of children who are dying because of what they've done.
yeah.
So when you look at that, it's soft power. Well, what does that do to a country? Whether you're Kenyan, Ugandan, wherever you might be, what does that do?
To the people in that country.
Yeah. I mean, what does that do to even outlying countries? Like
Yeah,
if you're not gonna be there for us, then who is? Oh well, China step in,
China stepping in.
right?
Yeah,
And so who do you become reliant upon? For
China.
who are you going to feel are going to do you the best service? It's going to be places like China because the USA's out of it now.
Yeah.
So when it comes to building a base or doing something that's of a military basis, then you're going to find that they're going to turn to China for help. So the USA now have lost they've lost the high moral ground some time ago, but they've certainly
Yeah.
lost that argument, I guess.
Yeah. Well, the tossing away your soft power is, in a lot of ways, is a lot more ridiculous than tossing away your military power.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, they're not tossing away their military power. They're going to. Their proposal is to spend $1 trillion on defence next year.
yeah,
That's up, what, 130 billion, something like that. 130 billion is like twice the GDP of France and Germany. You know,
yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, throwing away your soft power is a crazy thing to do. Soft power is what wins you friends.
Yes.
Uh,
So
we're friends with the United States because we're scared of them, sort of thing.
yeah,
We're friends with China because we needed water purification put in our country of Tanzania, and they came and built it for us.
mm,
You know, so but we were friends with the United States only because they're so powerful. That's
yeah.
not friendship.
So
Friendship
Avery,
should not be based on fear.
we've been doing this for nearly an hour now. So
Jesus.
we just want to thank all those people that came online, and I particularly want to thank Avery for being with me for this discussion. It's taken us a few weeks to get together, but every week on a Thursday around this time, Avery and I will be talking about issues that seem to matter to a lot of people, and particularly to you. So I want to thank all those people that came online just to even have a look to see what it is that we're doing. It's an interesting conversation that we have, and Avery is a very important part of that, and it's just vanished off screen at the moment. Avery, I notice.
Yeah. I was just reading a message from that Dano.
Right, so we can reply back to the message when we go offline.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you, Avery, for being with us. It was fantastic. Really
Welcome.
do appreciate it. And thanks, everybody, for participating on the Tony Tonkin Show. And we hope that you take care of yourself, look after yourself, and more importantly, be safe.